Hi, I'm Joe,
I'm Joe's mom.
and we're
East Side Vibes.
Before we get into who we're talking about today, which is SZA, my mom wanted to recognize the background here.
Yes, we have a new background behind us. My favorite artist of all time is Prince. And at the end of the school year last year, because I'm a middle school teacher, one of my students painted this for me. Took her about 2 weeks to do it. So I want to put it behind us and do a shout out to her for painting that for me.
I definitely appreciate that because if you watched our video last week, you know that I like Prince too, so I think it's a pretty good background. But anyway, like I said, to this week we're talking about SZA and her 2022 album Control. Before we get into it, what do you think of when you think of SZA?
Right now, when I think of SZA, I think Nationwide is.
Before we get into it, what do you think of when you think of SZA?
Right now, when I think of SZA, I think Nationwide is on your side because she's on the Nationwide commercials. And I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, is that SZA? And then I realized that it was. But the other thing I think about with her when it comes to musically, I really consider her to be a real good R&B singer. Her voice is beautiful. I've always loved her voice. I think I remember watching her on, it could have been the Grammys performing. I know she's been nominated quite a few times for the Grammys, and I like her song. I like her vibe. I like the way she, like, her hair and the sunglasses and everything. I really like that about her.
Yeah. She has a very classic look, like almost like an Aretha or
Yes.
yeah, like a very classic R&B.
Right.
Or even Motown.
When you see her, you know it's her. You know it's SZA.
One thing I think is funny is I know my mom is a big SNL fan, and she didn't realize that the Big Boys song that's like been all over the internet for the last year was SZA.
I didn't know that. That was funny.
Like, I'm sure if you're on TikTok, you've seen that, or heard that song, but if you've never seen the video, you wouldn't know that's literally just SZA.
You have to watch it. It's really funny. And her voice is great.
Yeah, it's a funny song. But anyway, so when this album came out, it was at the end of last year, and I actually did not write about it for my blog. I had had a couple other things I was working on at the time, and I don't know, it didn't hit me like, for example, the Metro Boomin album did, and there was another one that I reviewed at that time.
Okay.
And I just decided not to write about it, but I saw that I got all these crazy reviews, a 9 out of 10 from every publication. Everyone online was saying it was phenomenal. So a couple months later, I went back and listened to it again, and I started to see why people like it so much. One thing we both noticed is this record almost feels like it's two records in one. The first half or so of the album has a very modern R&B trap feeling, more of a hip hop feeling.
Yes.
Probably more suitable to younger fans, and a lot more music that could be go to maybe a bar or a club.
I agree.
And then the second half has a lot more of a R&B and soul, a lot more 90s influence. There's a little rock in there too. And I know my mom mentioned that she thought the first half sounds like it's underwater.
It's I don't know if it's just the way that they were using a synthesizer or the way they were working around with the sound, but I really feel that it sounds like it's underwater. And so he was showing me how to change all of these things on Spotify so I could listen to it a little bit differently. And I will admit that when I did change it, it did sound better, but I still feel like it was an underwater song, underwater feeling. So the first half did not catch with me. If there was one or two songs that I liked, but it did not catch with me as much as the second half. I loved the second half.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think that first half has a lot more of it's more suited to younger fans. The way it's mixed, the bass is really heavy and it has almost a drowning feeling, which
That could be it.
It reminds me a lot of, or at least a little bit of like Caribbean music in a way. The way it's mixed.
Yeah.
And if you're just like, if you don't listen to that kind of music very much, or if you, like a few years ago, that sound was really popular in hip hop, and if you just weren't into that kind of hip hop, it probably doesn't resonate with you as much. But one thing that I think we both agreed about is what that's really cool about this record is even if like for the last couple records we did, the Post Malone and Travis Scott one, there are songs on there that just I don't think are like very good, and I just wouldn't listen to again.
Right.
But even the songs on this record that aren't my favorites, because the whole record as a whole sounds so good, like when you play it straight through, those songs don't bug me. I think everything is like quality, and everything may not be for me, and I feel like you feel the same way.
Correct.
But when you listen to the whole thing, it still sounds good.
Correct.
Because the whole thing just flows well. Whereas I think for the Post Malone and Travis Scott album, those ones didn't flow super well. And there are songs that you just like would skip if you were listening to the album.
I completely agree with him. When we, went through the Travis Scott and Post Malone songs that I really liked, I have a personal playlist. Songs that I really liked, I put on my playlist, and I did that with this as well. However, I have listened to the whole album multiple times just because the album is good. And again, even though there's some songs I don't catch with, I'll still listen to the whole album, and I've not done that with Post Malone or Travis Scott. I just listen to the songs I like, but this one, I'll listen to the whole album.
That's definitely a credit to SZA for creating like an experience with this record. It's not easy to do that.
Correct.
And she achieved it for sure.
Yes.
So getting into some songs that we like, the first one we wanted to highlight is the most popular song on the record. It's Kill Bill. I know my mom really likes this one because she thinks the lyrics are funny, which the lyrics are funny. But the sound, to be honest, when I first heard this song, like kind of like how I felt about the whole record, it didn't like hit with me super well. Like
right away, it did not hit with me.
It's good. But the more and more you listen to it, the more like what she's saying kind of resonates, which makes it like more enjoyable.
Right. You can really hear her lyrics very well.
Yeah.
And again, when I first listened to it, I was like, but then the more I listened, I was like, and again, for me, it was the lyrics that caught me. Oh my gosh, the lyrics are funny, but it was a really good song.
Yeah, there are. In my opinion, at least, there are songs throughout the first half where I personally probably enjoy the sound more, but this one is probably the best song of the first half just because of like
I agree.
The lyricism and just like how candid what she's saying is.
I agree.
And how relatable it is.
Oh yeah.
Like, there are a lot of people who feel the same way when they break up with someone. They want to literally go murder them and...
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do
You'll
that.
wind up in prison. But it's a good... I mean, it's like she's getting it out. Like, this is how you feel, but don't do it.
This whole record feels that way, where she's like getting out like really strong because it's very relatable.
Right.
The second song, I know this one probably didn't hit with my mom as much. It's Used by, or it's featuring Don. One reason I really like this song is because of Don Toliver. I love his voice.
I agree. I it's not one of my favorites, but he sounds really good.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a great voice. I had never heard of him before.
He has an awesome voice. His album that came out this year was one of my most anticipated records of the year. I actually got to see him live because he opened for Future, which was really cool.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And he sounded awesome live.
Awesome.
But that album, like his debut album from a couple of years ago, just wasn't... It was okay, but it honestly disappointed me.
Oh.
It feels like he's better on other people's music.
How did he do when he performed live?
He was great live. But he did a lot of the features. He did a few songs from his album, but he did a lot of stuff he's featured on.
Wow.
Because those songs are more popular.
Okay. Maybe he's a feature artist.
Like, it almost reminds me a little bit of Ty Dolla $ign in a way.
I don't know who that is.
I'm sure you would have heard some songs with him that he was popular like in the mid 2000s, but he was similar where like his music people like wouldn't listen to that much, but he was
Okay.
almost thought of as like a featured god, or maybe someone you would know as like Nate Dogg.
Okay, yes,
Was
I know
like
who
that.
Nate Dogg is. Yes, yes.
Same thing where he's so good at adapting to other people's sounds, but it's almost like he doesn't know what he sounds good on.
Correct.
So he doesn't know what to do
Okay.
with his own records. But
Okay.
as far as him on a SZA song, the way his voice contrasts with hers, like the way I like the way it kind of like you say it, like a lot of the album sounds underwater. I think his vocals kind of sound underwater, and it sounds really cool compared to SZA's.
Right, right. Yes, his voice is great in that song.
The next song we were gonna get into is "Gone Girl."
Gone, gone girl.
I know.
Gone girl. Sorry.
That's one of obviously one of her favorite songs on the album.
Right.
One thing that my mom said that I sort of agree with is that it reminds to her it reminds her of artists like Brandy and Monica.
Yes.
I think it sounds more like artists maybe like Erykah Badu or Jill Scott.
I'm
From
gonna
that
agree.
same era,
Right.
But a different,
Right.
a little bit of a different kind of R&B.
Right, and it goes back to what we were saying when we talked about Kill Bill. She's getting out her emotions about how she feels about a breakup, a negative relationship, and she's just talking about how she feels about what happened in a relationship, and that she's what, I'm gone. I'm not going to be here anymore for you. So this is another song where she puts her feelings out there.
Yeah, lyrically, it's also another one that's very relatable. I think the way like her vocals in this song really portray the emotion of what she's saying.
Yes.
And because the instrumental is a little more stripped back, you can really feel what she's saying.
Correct. Everything from Gone Girl on was that R&B sound, and I loved the songs from Gone Girl down. I just felt that for me musically, I liked the flow and the smoothness of the songs.
The next one we were going to highlight is F2F. This is probably the weirdest song on the record compared to everything else.
Yes.
But I think it's cool that she did something like this. It has like a late 90s, early 2000s alternative rock sound. I've seen her like tweet and post about before how she likes Green Day.
Yes.
And I think this sounds a lot like Green Day from that era. Like songs like When I Come Around come to mind, or like Basket Case.
Oh, that's true.
Like,
That's true.
Kind of like that, those like deeper guitar tones.
I thought the intro of the song, the guitar intro, reminded me of Good Riddance by Green Day. But then I felt that her voice almost had that Avril Lavigne, or we've said Carly Rae Jepsen, like sound to it. But I agree with him with his Green Day analysis. It really had that vibe, and I'm a big Green Day fan.
Yeah, I like the distortion on like the guitars and stuff.
Yes.
I think that it would be cool if she did more music with like an alternative rock sound.
She is excellent. She's great at it.
Yeah, her voice sounds really interesting on this.
Correct.
Yeah, but I just think it's cool that she like went this route. And a lot of times when artists do this, I'll appreciate it, but it just won't hit. This one is like a good song.
Yeah,
like,
it hit.
She did it well.
It hit.
The next one we were gonna bring up is Special. This is probably one of my favorite songs on the record. One thing I mentioned when we were talking about it, it has a sound that reminds me of like this acoustic like pop music that was popular in the late 2000s when I was growing up. I think artists maybe like Sarah Bareilles or
okay.
I remember that guy who made that Bad Day song.
Yes.
It has like a sound that reminds me of like that sort of acoustic pop music. She said it almost sounds like graduation music to her a little bit.
But we were saying it sounds almost like a one-hit wonder song, and we're not saying that it is going to be a one-hit wonder, but it's just got that feel to it.
It's not, I mean, she's popular. It's not a one-hit wonder.
Right, but it's just got that kind of vibe. It's got that, we always use the word vibe, but it's got that vibe to it, but she's not a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, it's just really, it's a sound, once again, like F2F, it's a sound that is just way different than anything else on the record.
Yes, I agree.
And it's the lyrically, I think it's really cool, like how she's
I agree.
talking about how she like just like isn't like confident, and you know, it's once again a very relatable song.
Yes.
And the fact that it's so like acoustic sounding
Yes.
makes like what she's saying resonate.
I agree.
The next one we were going to highlight is Conceited.
My favorite song.
Yeah.
Favorite song.
Like she said, that's her favorite song on the record. I think this reminds me a lot of early 2000s R&B. I thought of like Aaliyah, maybe like Destiny's Child.
Yes. I agree. I agree.
Just the beat does have like a trap, like a modern trap beat.
Correct.
But the melody has like more of like an early 2000s R&B. And that like that contrast is pretty cool.
Right.
It's not super common to do that, and because it's not easy to merge those two sounds, but it sounds good on this one.
Correct. Her voice on this one was just amazing. I think out of all the songs, I felt her voice was the best on this one. And there was almost like a change in the middle of it, where it started off a little slower, and then it kind of changed and got a little faster in it. And the smoothness of the song, everything about the song, I just, it's an amazing song.
Yeah, it has a very smooth feeling. It's probably one of the
Definitely.
smoother songs on the record.
Right.
And like later in the album when it's winding down, I think that like it's a good song to like kind of like bring down like the mood of
Correct.
the record.
Correct.
But so the next one I wanted to bring up was I Hate You. That like Kill Bill, this is a song that just has like funny lyricism, funny and relatable lyrics. Obviously she's talking about like how she hates her ex. One thing that I like about it is it reminds me a lot of like older SZA music. I could see this being on her last album.
Okay.
And yeah, I know like this one didn't hit for you as much,
Correct.
Sonically,
Correct.
but yeah, I just for one, like I said, for one, it reminds me of her older music, and two, I just think it's funny. Basically, it's not like the best song on the record,
but it does when I think back to performances, because I've never listened to albums of hers before, but when I think back to performances I've seen of her before, whatever it is, Grammys or MTV Awards, her sound, that's the classic SZA that I remember from back then, and that's what it sounds like in this song.
Yeah, I could see that, and yeah, I could see like this. Speaking of like her performances, I could see this song being like cool to see live.
Correct.
I think it would be funny to see her perform this at the Grammys or something.
It would be interesting to see her perform this whole album, because I think she would be like one way in some of the songs, but like I think when she's done Conceited or Gone Girl, like I could see her like sitting on a chair playing her guitar for songs like that. So yeah, it would be interesting to see how she would perform this album.
Yeah, I would love to see her do definitely like see her live, because her vocals are so good.
Again, feel free to come here.
The last song we were going to bring up is Forgiveless, and that's the one with the ODB sample.
Yep. Great.
I'm a pretty big Wu-Tang fan, and ODB was always my favorite member, or Old Dirty Bastard. And usually, I mean, once in a while you'll hear like people incorporate his stuff into their music, but it's kind of hard because he has such like a polarizing sound.
Yes, he does.
And you have to like go really into that like 90s sound to like make it work. And she did that on this song, and I think she would have sounded great on like a Wu-Tang song.
So he didn't sing this with her album? She incorporated something else, something he did into it?
No, I mean, he's been dead like...
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. Oh boy.
He's been dead for a really long time.
See, there you go. This is why we do this, so I can learn things musically too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There we go. He did it from the grave.
Yeah. Usually when you're incorporating ODB stuff, it's, you know, from some of like his unreleased music, because he had a lot of like unreleased music.
Okay.
But yeah,
it's so good. I almost felt that there was like to me there was like a reggae kind of flow to it. But how do you get reggae with Old Dirty Bastard? I don't know, but she did it.
I think he had a Caribbean like family or something.
Okay.
He definitely incorporated like those kinds of sounds into his, not the Wu-Tang music.
Okay.
Like his personal music. And yeah, like obviously her voice is very different than his.
Yes.
He has a very powerful, you know, like brash voice, and she has more of like a calmer sound.
But she makes it work.
Yeah, I know. It's really cool. It is a very cool way to close out the record.
Yes. Yes.
It's very like similar to Conceited. It's very smooth. It kind of winds things down.
And when we were talking about the song and ODB, I said to him, I go, you know, I wonder where SZA got her name from, because her name is completely different. And what did you tell me?
Well, I mean, I knew, or I figured that it had to be inspired by the Wu-Tang Clan, and she looked it up and confirmed that. But yeah, because of SZA and RZA.
Yeah.
And I mean, it makes sense, because a lot of I actually told her that Childish Gambino also got his name from a Wu-Tang name generator.
And then I just found that Rihanna's son, his first name is RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh, I was gonna say I think A$AP Rocky's named after him, but no, he's actually named after a different New York rapper.
Okay.
But
obviously they have even now, and they had a lot of inspiration on musicians, old and young. So that's quite something.
But yeah, so our overall thoughts on the record, like I said at the beginning, the first time I heard SOS, I thought it was like okay.
Yes.
And the more and more I listen to it, the more and more I like it. If I could like go back and redo my like end of the year like list for 2022, I would put this one towards the top. I think it's actually great.
You said that.
I think the whole thing is really cool. Like it's cool how it feels like two different records, but it flows.
So what would you rank it?
I would probably give it like an 8.5 at least.
Wow.
Like it's up there. Like I said, it would be one of my favorite records of 2022.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah, what would you give it?
So again, I had to listen to it a couple of times, and again, the first part of it, just even though Kill Bill and Used were on there, and I got into them, the more I listened to it, I would say overall I would give the album an 8. And that's the highest number I've given so far. I really like this album, and again, I'll just listen to the whole album as opposed to different songs, just specific songs.
So yeah, with that being said, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. You know, do all the stuff. And if you have subscribed or liked, and if you're watching this, thank you for doing so.
And my quote for this week is, "Wanting to be someone else is a waste of the person you are." And that's by one of his favorite artists, Kurt Cobain. And I definitely agree with that, because when I look at some musicians, they talk about, you know, what is it that you can do if you look at someone else, look at what they do so you can be like them. And definitely Kurt Cobain was not that type of person. And I really like this quote because, especially with social media, too many people look at other people on social media and their thought is, how can I be like them? What can I do to look like them? And unfortunately, sometimes what you have to do is not good. And so in his case, he's like, just be who you are and be happy with who you are.
I've always felt that you get like the most, I don't know, weirdly, you get the most attention when you are who you are.
Yes.
Like trying to adapt to be like everyone else, just one doesn't at the end of the day it doesn't feel good. and two, you're not being like genuine, and it's hard to like keep that up. So
Right. And I think the older you get, the more you grow into that feeling of,
Well,
I
some
am who I
people.
am. Some people, correct.
Yeah.
Some people, but we do.
Yeah.
We grew into it.
But
Definitely.
yeah, if you have anyone that you would like us to talk about, please comment it. We're always open to suggestions. We want to know what people want to see.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm Joe.
I'm Joe's mom.
We're Eastside Vibes, and have a great day.
Bye.